evening, this is Jameson with St Croix 40, and I want to welcome a very special guest to the garage tonight, Kate Coward, who is an extraordinary athlete and a dear friend to the Winter Ultra community, and particularly St Croix 40. Kate has been all over the map. She has done marathons on all 7 continents, including Antarctica, where it doesn't get much colder. She is an Ironman finisher on multiple occasions. She's completed the Arrowhead course 7 times, one time actually going out and back with another friend of ours, Kari Gibbons. And she is also the ski champion of the first ever St Croix 40 Winter Ultra. Birkebeiner finishes, Order of Rimthurs, the Alaska Iditarod 350 bike champion. The list goes on. So thank you, Kate, for taking a little bit of time with us here to chat about Winter Ultras.
Thanks for having me.
And at the end, we're going to have a special deal that'll be offered for the 2022 edition of the St. Croix 40, and we'll talk about that at the end of the interview. So, you've done a lot of winter stuff. You've done a lot of Winter Ultra stuff. What makes you keep coming back to Winter Ultras?
There are really 2 things that keep compelling me to return year after year. The one is the people in the community. It's unlike any I've ever been a part of. It's sort of like every year at these races, it's like a family reunion. So I think everyone is a little forlorn after last year when we didn't have the races, and I miss everybody very much. But it's just a really interesting group of people. We all bond and connect over wanting to do really hard, crazy things in the cold. Mm-hmm. But we come from all over and have all different social and family and backgrounds, but you bond on the trail. Mm-hmm. And that's really special. It's a really unique place, people of all ages and walks of life, I guess. But the second thing is I just like to do really hard things. So it doesn't get harder than doing an ultra, but doing an ultra when you have so many variable elements, such as snow and cold and a lot of other random things that can happen out there on a winter ultra. So that makes it, I think, the penultimate challenge for me personally, and I think it's a huge draw for people and why they continue to come back.
Cool. You mentioned the different challenges that happen, and so St. Croix 40, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is having and making people go through some of those worst challenges, and one of that is being out overnight. Mm-hmm. So St. Croix 40 happens as an overnight race. For a lot of people, being out overnight can be scary. Mm-hmm. So what's kind of your advice for folks who maybe have never experienced being out all night, especially in a cold January Minnesota night?
I think the most important thing you can do is do some of your training at night or early morning. So whatever it is in the dark, and doing it while tired as well. So that could look something like a training sled pull or bike ride or ski at 8 p.m. till 8 till 10, right? Or 9 till 11, or even 10 till midnight, when the world is a little bit quieter. And take a friend. That's one way to combat the sort of the creepies in the middle of the night, is to take somebody with you or plan your routes where there are people and it's active. But the only way you can overcome that is by giving it a shot and going out there and doing it. You can also practice a bivvy in your yard. So you can take your sleeping bag and your bivvy sack and go and read a book or listen to a podcast in your backyard in the snow late at night before you go to bed. But get out there and take a friend.
Awesome. So gear is another big thing we test people on. Mm-hmm. People have to use their bivvy sacks and sleeping bags, have to use their stoves. A lot of times, though, getting into winter ultras can seem like an expensive proposition for folks. So what are some budget-friendly tips that you might have for folks who are just dipping their toes into the water?
Sure. I mean, I think the gear can be the most intimidating part of this for many people. It certainly was for me. My first winter ultra was Tuscobia 80, and I knew somebody who had done it before, and I went and borrowed all of his gear. There are so many people out there in the community, and this race is sandwiched between two pretty big events, the Tuscobia 160 and 80 and Arrowhead 135. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of athletes who are resting between those two events, and they have gear. I mean, I've got extra gear, or over the years you get multiple gears. So some people have multiple sleds, or they have multiple stoves that they use for different occasions. I know for me, I've got a stove, one that's the ultralight where I intend not to have to use it, and then another one which is that I would take to Alaska, and is something that I would use to cook, in my water, boil my water, or cook my food. So I have an extra or two, but I would encourage people to reach out and see if they can borrow from people. There's a women's group called Wild Winter Women.
Okay.
And it's a Facebook group that a handful of us are a part of, and that's a great place to get support, whether it's gear or training tips. And we can all rally together. I think your Facebook page, for example, can people post on that?
Not our Facebook page, but
okay.
the Arrowhead 135 Dream Team page. We often are sending people over to that one.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So there are ways to get out there and borrow people's gear. And then, you don't have to have the nicest stuff. You can, as long as you're meeting the requirements for the race, you can kind of get by with some things. Some of it's weather dependent, the size of your puffy. If it's going to be -30, you don't want to compromise on the integrity of that puffy jacket. But I just encourage people to borrow, reach out to the community, phone a friend, find out if you can cobble it together for this race and the weeks leading up so that you can practice with some of your gear.
Sure. The first sleeping bag I took out to Tuscobia when I attempted the 80 a couple years ago was, I think I got it for $50 at Thrifty Outfitters. It's a 0-degree bag, and it was heavy.
Yes.
But it met the requirement.
Yes.
So, awesome.
Yeah.
And speaking of gear, so what is one piece of gear that you would never go without? Like that thing that you would advise people, invest in this if you're going to spend some money on something.
Okay, so this isn't super expensive, but I've become obsessed with this. This is the Cold Avenger, and the model is the Pro Soft Shell. And so what I like about this is it really serves two functions. So the first function is that it filters the cold air coming in through this so that you're breathing warmer air, which protects your lungs. And then the other thing is it functions as a gaiter. So because this model hooks to itself versus, I think I brought the other one. This is okay. I don't recommend this one as much, but here's another model. I think it's, I don't exactly know what model it is, but anyway, these two flaps hook to a hat or a special kind of fabric, and so you can kind of take it off and dangle it. But I've lost it before when it just kind of falls off, and it's a little bit tougher. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing about this model, which again is the Pro Soft Shell Cold Avenger ventilator, is that it can double as a gaiter. So if you put it on, when you've got a jacket on, it can easily be moved around. So sometimes I'll just wear it like this and breathe in the cold air depending on the temperature, but I'm very cozy and warm, and it protects my neck. And then other times when it's extremely cold, I can put it up here and breathe in warmer air. So I love this. I use this any race event that's below 0 degrees. I will be using this anytime I'm training. So I'm not working as hard. I will be using this under 5 or 10 degrees just because it's cozy and warm. So this is the one thing I would say I wish I had invested in a lot longer ago. I'm not certain, but I want to say this is probably between $30 and $40.
Sure.
So.
Awesome. Any other particular gear tips you want to share?
Sure. I brought a couple of things. One is this mountain feed bag. This is a Revelate Designs mountain feed bag. This is for the bikers, although if you're a walker or a skier, you could attach this to your belt. And basically you can use it for two reasons. One is You can, so this fixes to your handlebars. This can be used for snacks. You can fill it with snacks so that when you're biking, you can just reach in, grab it, stick it in your mouth, and you don't have to work with any zippers. You could also put a water bottle in here. This isn't a real insulator, but you could put a water bottle in there, and that can work just fine too. Sometimes I'll also just put like batteries in there or something, all kinds of reasons, but it's just easily accessible, and you can kind of reach in there. And like I said, this is meant to fix to a bike because it has two Velcros, one for your stem and one for your handlebar. Although you could fix this to a belt and hang it here. I know when Kari and I did the double arrowhead, which is back in 2018, I had this on my belt and I stuck a Pringles canister in there. I think she had Lay's, I had Pringles, I don't know, but you could, I would kind of like take it out of, it was like a holster on the side of my belt. And speaking of belts,
your chip holster.
Yes, my chip holster. Speaking of belts, a lot of, sometimes there are a lot of questions on sleds and ski pulks or running, walking pulks on the forums out there, on Facebook and whatnot. And so, one thing I wanted to share is this is the Ski Pulk brand, skipulk.com hip belt. And this is a really popular belt for people who are pulling pulks and sleds to use in these events. It has a nice clip in the front so that you can easily unclip it and shed yourself of your sled. And then it has different ways that you can attach the belt to your ropes or bungee or poles if you're using a hard pole pulk. And lots of different loops, so if you needed to, you could hang emergency things off the side of it. But it's also nice because it has a little cushion and it sits nice on the hips. Some people will use a chest harness. It kind of depends on the weight. Some people will actually, more so the skiers, although I don't like to ski with a pack, we'll wear like a hiking backpack. So it's all just whatever your comfort level is and whatever you end up training with. I mean, I really recommend starting early with your training on kind of what you think your setup will be, because the last thing you want to do is get into a situation where you're several hours in and your back is killing you and you have to DNF because of that. I mean, this is something that you can solve. You can solve early on by just testing whether you want to use a belt. I think I trained a little bit with my dog's skijoring harness because I wasn't pulling a ton of weight in some of my training sessions, and I was contemplating whether I would use it. I think it would have held up, but it was digging into me more. This will distribute the weight of the pulk you're pulling behind you because of the width of the belt and the cushion on there. So,
awesome.
Yeah, so those are some things that everyone will have their favorite, best gear piece of advice, but those were a couple of things I just wanted to share today.
Cool. Yeah. So as we promised, you are also the owner of Full Potential Performance Coaching.
Yes.
And fullpotentialperformancecoaching.com.
Yes.
People can find you there.
Yeah.
And you have graciously offered to give a special deal to our participants this year, and we're going to offer the same deal to folks who are on the wait list for hoping to get you in. Do you want to talk about what you're offering for coaching?
Yeah,
program?
So Jameson and I talked about this as, this race is really a way for people to learn about winter ultras or have a competition that wasn't a multi-day competition in the middle of the winter. And with that, I think when people are approaching their first winter ultra, they may have a lot of questions, whether it's about nutrition, gear, or how to train, just because it is a little different than if you're a summer ultra veteran. The winter is different, and it's sometimes a little scary and very intimidating. So we wanted to create something that would give people a starting point and a way to access information and feel that they're on the right track, especially as the weather starts to turn. It's harder to get out there when the days get shorter. And so part of my coaching business is really customized individual coaching and fewer plans and more active monthly coaching. However, what we want to do is offer a 10-week training plan for ski, bike, or foot division for this particular race, in addition to 4 Zoom coaching calls that will last around an hour each leading up to the event, as a means for people to have a starting point, something that they can work on and know that they're being set up for success. Because really, you go out there, if you're going to spend all the time training, you might as well do it right. And I wasn't the most comfortable leaving people with, a generic plan, because that can be hard. Everyone's an individual, but I hope that the Zoom calls and the group coaching will give people the chance to ask questions. And each call will have a different topic. So we'll have one on gear, one on nutrition, one on training, and they'll be phased throughout the basically November to January appropriately as we reach the race. So the last call will be a skills Zoom call where we can talk about boiling water, using your stove, bivy techniques, and I may have some guests come on those calls too from the community who can share their insights as well.
And so cost of this, you said, is going to be $30.
Yes.
And we will send out all of the details about how to take advantage of this to participants and people on the wait list so that you can get involved with this. So this is a great deal. Kate is a great coach. She's coached a lot of really good athletes who've done some incredible stuff. So this is a really exciting thing for us to be able to offer, and hopefully it'll help a lot of folks who are maybe going out there for their first time.
Yeah,
so.
I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's really exciting when people just be careful, because once you get hooked on this sport, winter ultraing, whatever method you're going, it's very addicting. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kate, very much for being here. I really appreciate it. This is our video for the year, and it's fun to have a special guest and a special friend of the race. And look forward to seeing you out there this winter.
Great. Me too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.